Hello everyone and welcome to episode 26 of the Knowledge Pool. Tams?
Hi. How's it going?
How are you?
I'm alright. It's a little warm in here tonight, but, I was going to say spring is coming. No, spring is not coming. Autumn, my favorite season is coming. I'm so excited.
And Laura?
Yes, hello.
How are things in your side of the world?
Oh,
you mean on the other side of the table?
Yeah.
Not too bad. It's getting into, hectic, chaotic season around our particular town, which is a university town.
Mm-hmm. Students are all coming back.
As soon as the long weekend hits, which is coming up shortly.
Mm-hmm. This is probably the biggest moving weekend for the year, I'm guessing. For us.
Probably, yeah.
I'm really glad we're not moving on September 1st.
Yeah.
Good luck trying to find something that will transport your things.
Yeah.
I'm Step, by the way, and we're here to talk magic. So let's get into magic.
Sure. It's been a busy week this week, huh?
Yes and no. I mean, first thing that obviously happened was that Ixalan spoilers were made official.
That's correct. They basically said, so you remember that sheet that, was leaked?
Uh-huh.
We are going to spoil officially all of those cards because you've already seen them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's nice to not have that hanging over us now.
I like that I don't feel guilty about going and looking. I didn't really go and look because I was like, I don't really want to. But it's nice for us who talk about this stuff to be able to look at it. And, yeah.
It's funny because in the first 10 or 20 episodes of Limited Resources, back when I started listening to magic podcasts, it was spoiler for, was it New Phyrexia? Had dropped the whole set had been spoiled, leaked.
Oh yeah, through the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Wizards just went ahead and officially spoiled everything so that it wasn't hanging over anyone's head as far as, do we pay attention to it, do we not pay attention to it? The content creators got the okay from Wizards basically to talk about it that way.
That's good.
And that's kind of how I feel now.
Yeah.
So, for news, obviously there are spoilers.
Yup.
We're going to talk pretty in-depth about them later on in the podcast.
Yes.
But just from the top, we wanted to talk briefly about a card, which has already been errated.
Right.
That's fast. It hasn't even been released yet.
So, there's a card called Hostage Taker. It's 2 blue-black for a 2/3 human pirate. And when Hostage Taker enters the battlefield, exile target artifact or creature until Hostage Taker leaves the battlefield. You may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast it. Now, the important part is the very beginning, where it says exile target artifact or creature, which means that if there are no other creatures on the battlefield, you have no choice but to target Hostage Taker. And this is also not a May ability.
Yeah. So explain why this is a problem.
So then you turn into an infinite loop, which breaks Magic Online, and also the game, and ends in a draw.
Yeah, that's hopefully avoidable. In any case, they have errated it.
Yes, so, I mean, the internet picks up on these things pretty quickly.
Yes, they do.
As soon as the card was officially spoiled, they commented on it.
Well, and in the case of this, people look for broken O-rings all the time.
Yeah,
because
that's
it's
how
fun.
the Felidar Sovereign or Guardian combo was found within 20 minutes of the card being spoiled.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, oh, wait a sec, this does something infinite. And then Wizards went, whoopsies.
That wasn't intended.
So, the same thing kind of happened. Actually, there was one Wizard staff member who I'm actually not sure who it was, but they were like, no, it works as intended. It doesn't make an infinite loop. We don't know what you're talking about. And then about 20 minutes later...
Wizards official.
They actually then errated the card.
Yeah.
So, basically, Hostage Taker now reads, when Hostage Taker enters the battlefield, exile another target creature or artifact.
Yeah. So it won't actually say this on the cards is the problem because they've already been printed. So if you open one, it won't have that extra word.
Or if you are playing against someone at a pre-release and they don't follow Magic Online stuff very much, you should be prepared to call a judge.
Yeah. So this is going to cause a few problems at least. I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be too negative, but it seems like this is a symptom of something that has been going on at Wizards for a while.
Yes.
They have seemed to be just kind of careless about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's probably the word for it.
And I think that part of the reason could be there are so many things coming out.
Yeah, there's just so many, products that they have to look over and check, and keeping a balanced standard is important as well, and then making sure that it's not going to, break, Modern or Commander or whatever.
But they're also just making so many sets, Not only are they 4 big sets a year now, but they have ramped up their extra sets to, 3 Masters set per year.
Yep,
or
so
something.
That's all of those products then have to be checked for whichever other formats they're going to be legal in, as well as are they internally consistent, as well as do they accidentally break the game? Whoopsies.
Whoops. I don't know.
Hopefully the new testing group will help to find these things.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think, Tams?
Since honestly, all you need to do is read the card and have an understanding of how the stack works, or have seen the O-Ring Infinite Loop Break Mikko LSV video.
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe I'm just not nicer, but I kind of look at it from the other side, that how many hundreds and hundreds of cards are printed every year, and how many oopsies do they actually have? 1, maybe 2 a year?
That's
recently.
That's fair, but they did go a long time without something like this.
And were the cards as my thinking is the further into Magic's future we go, the more cards we have to contend with interactions happening with.
Yep.
Sure, but in this case, this is a known quantity. They've printed, I don't know, a dozen O-ring effects, and this is exactly that. They just left off the word another for some reason.
Mm-hmm. Just like Felidar Guardian, they left off the word another.
In that case, I could see the case for them wanting to try it, because it didn't seem like it was going to be broken, but turned out being.
That it was a two-card infinite combo, yes.
Yeah.
So, anyways, the problem with, infinite enter the battlefield effects like this is that, let's say you have Impact Tremors, which deals 1 damage to your opponent whenever you have a creature enter the battlefield. And then you play this card, and then you just win the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or any number of enter the battlefield effects. Yeah.
So at least they caught it before we were actually going to play with them. Though would have been nice before they printed them.
Yeah. And they've errated cards before, so it's not a super huge deal. I've just never played in a time in Standard where there's a card that doesn't do what it says it does.
Yeah, so, like I said, it'll also just be awkward at pre-releases.
Yeah.
Because once that happens, generally speaking, the people who are more likely to go to play in stores are more likely also to have kept up on this sort of thing.
On the other hand, what do we think of the card as it is?
Seems fine.
I like it.
Mm-hmm. We'll see how it plays out.
Any other news before we get into full spoiler hype?
Yes. There's actually a fair amount of news. So let's see. Next up, I guess we can talk about is related to the spoiler set, in that they spoiled the new Jace Planeswalker and have made some adjustments to the Planeswalker Legendary or Uniqueness rule.
So I like what they have decided here.
And what have they decided, Step?
Okay, so they have gotten rid of the Planeswalker Uniqueness rule. For all intents and purposes, all Planeswalkers are now legendary. They've errated all past Planeswalkers to be legendary, and all Planeswalkers now are going to be printed as legendary. So the Planeswalker Uniqueness rule, which was basically serving the same purpose as the legendary rule, has been removed. Because they wanted to simplify the rules, I think.
Maybe, but the consequence, probably intentional, now means that you can have multiple Planeswalkers of the same type, so you can have multiple Jace Planeswalkers and multiple Gideon Planeswalkers. They just cannot be the exact same Planeswalker.
Right, so you can have a Jace Beleren and a Jace Cunning Castaway on the battlefield at the same time.
Right. But you still can't have two Jace Belerens.
Right.
So it probably won't have that much of an impact on Standard, aside from the fact that you can now play 4 Nisses at once, because they really don't have that many non-Oath of the Gatewatch Planeswalkers in Standard at the moment.
Now, that being said, they did say that they were going to
in the
diversify
future,
their Planeswalkers.
They are moving away from that, starting in future sets. So it should be coming up shortly, basically in the Dominaria sets.
How many, when Ixalan comes out, I'm talking about the Standard as of these changes. How many Gideons will be in Standard? Just the one?
Yep.
How many Nisses? 2?
No, there's the Simic one, there's the Planeswalker deck one, there's
the Planeswalker deck.
5 mana, 6 mana one, whatever. There's going to be at least 3.
Was she also in, no, there's just going to be the 2, the one from, 3 if you count the Planeswalker decks one.
Which, standard legal, so 3.
Okay. Yeah, well, like I said, they're probably getting away from that because they said they're going to diversify their Planeswalkers.
The real potential for chaos, of course, is now in other sets. Commander.
I don't think it's going to be any more broken than just having, say, a Gideon and an Elsbeth on the field at the same time to have 2 Gideons.
Maybe, but you can now have multiple Jaces on the field. Jace tends to be a lot more powerful. In blue commander decks?
You know what?
Yeah.
I don't think I want to play against somebody who can afford to have all of the Jaces.
Boy, do I agree with you on that one.
There's something to be said for that.
I mean, in Commander, obviously, powerful, busted things can happen. It just depends on what you're going for power level-wise. Mm-hmm. So, really, there's also the potential for weird things in Modern, because there was a pretty sweet Gideon tribal deck that was going around a few months ago, and the problem was sometimes you just pulled multiple Gideons and you couldn't play them. Now you don't have that problem.
I don't think that's necessarily... I mean, it's going to be upsetting.
Yes.
But I think that's possibly a good thing, because decks could just get away with not having answers, and now they're not going to be able to.
Yeah, but on the other hand, Modern's also been in a great place lately, so is this going to
That's
change
true.
things for the better? Obviously, we have no idea, because this is a very unique situation.
Yeah.
So we're basically just going to have to see how it shakes out. Like I said, I don't think it'll have too much of an impact on Standard, especially once there changes to the which Planeswalkers are coming up more often kicks in. But yeah, for some of the older formats that include more of these same name Planeswalkers, it'll be interesting.
I think it's probably going to be a good thing for Standard, if it has any effect whatsoever, simply because they seem to be depowering Planeswalkers moving forward, at least a little bit. Over the last few sets, have you noticed that Planeswalkers don't seem to have ultimates anymore?
Some of them. I mean, the 3-mana Liliana that made exponential zombies was pretty good. And she was also $50.
Yeah.
Because she was great. She is rotating shortly, but...
But, the new Jace that people are saying is no good?
Well, no. What I've heard people saying is, he looks terrible, but he's a 3-mana Planeswalker, so he'll probably be at least fine.
I think, regardless of the fact that he's a Planeswalker, he just looks like a value card for 3 mana. A thing that you can play.
He's a thing that you can play, but there is better things to be doing at 3 and blue. Especially for double blue casting cost.
Maybe. Maybe we should just read him to get this out of the way. Jace, Cunning Castaway, is 1 blue for a 3 loyalty legendary Planeswalker Jace, and his +1 is whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player this turn, draw a card, then discard a card. So you get to loot if you get in with a creature.
I'll remind you, Tamiyo did this better. This is Bant Tamio, the field researcher.
She was also Bant.
And, well, yeah, but she was just not played, even when Bant was actually being played in, like, the blue-white spirits deck and stuff like that. She was maybe played as a 1-up in the sideboard for the mirror match value.
That's fair. His -2 is you get a 2/2 illusion with the illusion ability, which is whenever it becomes the target of a spell, sacrifice it.
So they've actually moved away from the original templating, which was target of a spell or ability.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the same as the laboratory assistant from Amonkhet, the 2/3 for 1 and a blue, which also you had to sacrifice it when it became target of a spell, not spell or ability. So it seems like they're changing this to make it such that creatures like tappers or just creatures that have repeatable targetable abilities no longer completely ruin your day if you're running one of these.
That's good. Because my first thought was, but all of the tappers and the, but no, that's good.
Because that's a feel-bad moment if I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
This way, at least, they have to spend some amount of resources on it. And then his -5 is create 2 tokens that are copies of Jace Cunning Castaway, except they're not legendary. So, I don't know how the rules work here, but I think the legendary one still sees them because they have the same name, and then you have to get rid of the legendary one?
No.
Is that not how that works?
I don't think so.
Okay.
So my problem with Jace, so let's say you you bring him out, he's at 3 loyalty. You can minus him to make a 2/2.
Yep.
You could also just play a 3-mana 2/2?
Yes, but then you can +1 him and then make another 2/2.
Sure.
So you get 2 2/2s.
Over several turns, yes.
2 turns. 3 turns. Yeah.
Yes. So let's say instead what you do is you go, I'm going to play him on 3. I'm going to try and ultimate him. So you +1. And in order to get any benefit, you then need to have a creature deal combat damage to a player, and even then you don't draw a card, you just loot. And then you get to do it again! And by that point you're probably dead to Ramonette Bruins. But if you're not dead, then you get to ultimate him, and you get 2 more Jaces, and they still don't do anything.
Yeah. I mean, they make 2/2s.
You've spent like 6 turns. At this point, you could have gone to the store, bought yourself some 2/2s, brought them back with you, put them on the battlefield, and then they also wouldn't die when they were targeted by a spell.
Well, they might, because most of the spells that people play are removal. But, yeah, I get you. I mean...
But on the other hand,
know.
He's a 3-mana Planeswalker, and they're always at least fine. So I guess we'll see how it goes.
It would be really nice to know that there was a crappy Jace.
It would. You know?
I mean, there is one that's not, like, great, but...
But the one that everyone said was going to be terrible turned out to be $80.
Was a $100 card, yes. So, we'll see how it goes. I don't think that it's going to do much in Standard, especially at the start, just because I don't think you're going to live that long.
Yeah. It's interesting.
We'll see how it goes.
What do you think of his art? His outfit?
I think that Tams has a massive crush.
No, not my type at all.
So he is, for the first time, I believe, pictured without a hood and a cloak.
And he looks about 12.
Yeah. He has been pictured with his hood, off. But, this is the first time Jace is showing any skin. Now, he's a castaway, so it might not be intentional. But I'll remind everyone that he is a mind mage. And what that means is that in my headcanon, he can make you see him the way he wants you to see him. So, as far as I'm concerned, the way Jace wants you to see him is as the pretty boy emo cover band.
The 90s boy band, Jay?
Yeah. You'll notice that, when he's on Ravnica and he's the Living Guild Pact, he looks a little older, sterner, and more serious. And then when he's out adventuring, he looks like... What's his name in the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie before he gets cool?
Oh, Orlando Bloom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So...
Will?
So my problem with the artwork... Look, from all the art that we've seen of the set so far, it's really bright. Everyone seems to be out adventuring. Mm-hmm. And here's Jace with, half a shirt on, with magic twining around his fingertips, looking like he's in the worst place imaginable.
Looking like somebody drowned his puppy.
He looks super serious and not like he's having
very cranky.
adventuring.
Okay.
Also, what's that Leviathan behind it?
I don't know, but that's going to ruin his day. But here's my big problem with the art.
Yes.
And I think this needs to be said because this is very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
He is very fair. Do you really think he's wearing sunscreen?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
And Mind Mage does not protect you from the powers of the sun.
That's
I
right.
don't know. He's definitely tanning. I think those magical tattoos are like scars.
SPF 60?
No, they show up like white against tan skin. Have you seen scars against tan?
Yeah.
So...
Those are really big scars.
I don't know.
Well, they're like magical tattoo, whatever.
I don't know.
Are you sure he's not just tattooed?
He's looking a little burnt there.
Yeah.
My
tattooed
advice
in
is...
white ink.
Like, I'm with you. I'm a
People
little
of
concerned
Ixalan,
about his...
please buy your sunscreen.
Yes.
All right.
Especially when you're out adventuring on the sea, because you will forget how reflective that is.
That's right. That's right.
So, I'm going to nickname this card right now.
What's his name?
Salty Jace.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
that's
pretty
good. That's really good.
Salty Jace.
He does look salty, doesn't he?
All right.
All right, so moving on.
Yeah.
So, yes, next up, just while we're on the topic of actual news, there were some changes to the banned and restricted list.
Right.
In Vintage.
Yes, which none of us play.
Yeah. So basically what they've done is, in an attempt to... so none of us play Vintage. I do watch it when it's, occasionally showcasted on Twitch and stuff like that. But I also do, follow what people are talking about, complaining about, generally speaking, which is basically shops. Miniature workshops decks, so artifact decks that force your opponents to not play spells because you can't afford to because they all cost a lot more.
Right.
So basically you're locked out of the game. So they have restricted Thorn of Amethyst, which is one of the cards used in that deck.
Instead of the core card, which costs a lot of money and people would be salty about them restricting. So that makes sense.
They've also restricted Monastery Mentor.
That's interesting.
Which is from what, Fate?
Yeah, Fate Reforged.
And so it's actually quite recent addition for Vintage. But the problem is that literally every blue deck in Vintage, and there are a lot of them, uses it as their win condition.
Well, yeah, it's super good.
You play it, and then you cast a bunch of spells, and then you attack them with like 3 prowess giant attackers.
Spells which you're casting anyway because you're running a blue deck in Vintage.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I think that those decks are fun to watch, but I can understand getting a little sick of playing them.
I think it's an interesting way to ban things because they're not outright nerfing a deck. They're just making them a little bit worse.
Yeah, because they are restricted, so you can still play one of.
Yeah, and the blue decks can also find any number of other good win conditions, right?
Or they have so much card draw and card selection, they can probably just...
Yeah.
So, the other thing... Oh,
hey,
hello,
Draftcat.
The other change was that Yawgmoth's Bargain has now been unbanned.
This is one of those cards that I heard about when I first started playing Magic again, and like one of the ultra powerful cards from the past that of course it was banned in all formats, and then finally when I read it I'm like, oh.
Yeah, if you don't quite realize the power of card draw, so it's the 4 black enchantment that says that you skip your draw step and you can pay a life to draw a card.
At any time and as much as you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you do still have a discard phase.
Yep.
But you can also draw like 400 cards after that point, if you have that much life to spare, which sometimes you do. So I've seen it played in Cube, where it's usually not that good, just because you can usually be doing better things. But sometimes you'll play it in like Storm decks.
Sure.
For the extra card runs, because when you're storming out, you're trying to win that turn anyway, so It doesn't matter what life you're at. But basically, from what I've heard, everybody's thinking is just that at this point there are more powerful card draw engines in the format. So there are also several card draw engines that are banned. This is probably the one most likely to have the least amount of impact. So let's kind of dip our toes in the water. We'll try on banning it. We'll see how it goes.
And have they also restricted it? So
No,
it's just unbanned.
Would you want to play 4 of them in your deck?
Well, no.
So
could you find 4 of them to play?
Well, so anyways, I don't think it'll have that much of an impact. But the thing is that mentor decks and chop decks are so prevalent in Vintage that combined with the restriction of 2 key cards from both of those decks, maybe it'll change things a little bit.
Maybe. But it is 6 mana.
Yeah, that is the problem. Because Vintage definitely has fast mana. Like, you can play Mox and Black Lotus and stuff like that, although they're also restricted. But you can get to 6 mana, but usually if you're trying to get fast mana, it's like to get to 4 to play Jace the Mind Sculptor or something.
Right. So. Speaking of Jaces.
Yes. So, if you follow Legacy, or Vintage even, it'll be kind of interesting just to see how it goes, see if it kind of brings some life back to the format. But obviously the reason that they have actually gone ahead with these changes is that there are now going to be Vintage Leagues on Magic Online.
Ooh.
So they needed to make a change since, from what I've heard, the format's kind of miserable to play in currently.
And stale, I'm guessing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the good part is that with Vintage Leagues, they will be able to get a lot of data really quickly about how these changes are impacting the format.
Vintage should be easier to get into online, too, for a larger group of people.
Yeah, most of the cards are cheaper, which is true of most cards on Magic Online.
Yeah.
So, there are a couple of exceptions, but generally speaking, it is much cheaper to get in on it. And, you can also sell cards a bit easier than you can in person if you're trying to get out of something.
Right. Yeah.
So, deck switching is not necessarily as difficult.
It can take years to buy into an actual paper deck in these formats.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep. So, again, it'll just be interesting to kind of watch from the sidelines how things shake out since we're not particularly invested in it ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, the Commander decks came out on Friday.
Yes, indeed. And I'm glad you mentioned that because we actually managed to play some games with them.
Yes, we did. Mm-hmm. So, I guess let's just talk about overall impressions.
In my review of the cat deck, which I realize now I still haven't finished processing because the editing was taking forever, so I'll get that up tonight. I mentioned that I thought it was a really funny looking aggro deck, and after playing it, I realized that it's not an aggro deck at all. It's a Voltron deck. Which I should have realized when they said it had an equipment sub-theme.
Oh, it's got a big equipment sub-theme.
Yeah.
So we played 2 games with the 3 of us all together, and so obviously it was a 3-player game. Mm-hmm. Each time somebody played the cat deck, it was like, I'm going to play a couple of equipments, then I'm going to play a creature that gets double strike when it's equipped, or that creates cat tokens when it's equipped, and then I'm going to put all these equipment on it, and then I'm going to kill your face really quick if you don't deal with it right now.
Yep. That was basically how it rolled. It never actually managed to do that, though, because people always had answers, which is fine. This is multiplayer Commander. You want games to go for a while and things to change.
Yeah, it does basically run into the same problem that every Voltron deck runs into in Commander, which is just that if someone has an answer for that one thing that you've invested a lot of resources into, you might find yourself very far behind everybody else. But on the other hand, if it works, you'll just win the game.
I like some of the cards that they've added to kind of soften that issue. Like there's the creature that if it's on the battlefield, it allows you to attach your equipments at instant speed, which is really great. Especially if they suddenly kill your one creature that's all Voltroned up, and you're like, oh. But yeah, there's a couple of little things in there. But what I found a pain in the neck is winding up with 6 equipments in your hand, and they've killed your one creature, and you're just like, hey, look at all the pretty equipment I have on the battlefield that does nothing.
Yeah, well, at least you still have your commander, maybe.
But
once it's been killed a couple of times.
So I did not actually play the cat deck, but from what I noticed as an interested observer is that of all of the decks we played, the cat deck was the one that had the most missed triggers from the commander. Because when you have, like, the dragon dude, you just remember your dragons are cheaper. Or if you have the vampire dude, you just remember, I get an extra vampire. With the cat deck, you have to go, okay, yeah, I'm moving to combat. Now, which one do I want to give +3/+3 to? And then now that it's attacked, do I want to pay mana to double its power and toughness? Or, like, almost never did that actually happen, the person was always just like, oh, I'll pass, without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Because it's not actually a melee ability. If you have a cat on the battlefield, you give it +3/+3.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it also, was something that they might go, I'm going to attack, and then they'd completely forget the second ability, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. It's definitely something to keep your mind on when you are playing that deck. Mm-hmm. So, just something that needs practice.
So the other deck that I want to discuss with you specifically, Laura, because you said that you didn't like, or you had heard bad things about the Wizards deck.
I surely did.
Before playing it.
Yes.
And then, of course, you had to try it.
Well, there's no point in discussing something when you had the chance to actually have experience and then choose not to.
So, after having that experience, what is your take on the Wizards deck?
It was garbage up until about turn 40.
Okay.
The problem is that I drew a lot of lands.
Yeah.
Which happens in Commander, especially with the pre-con Commander decks, which we were talking about. They're full of lands. The problem is that if you do not draw card draw spells, or wizards that allow you to draw cards specifically, you basically have no way out.
Right.
Like, the only reason I actually survived the early game is that I happened to have in my hand, and that's the reason that I kept the hand without mulliganing, the 1 in a blue 1/1 that taps to turn something into an 0/2, and it just bought me just enough time because nobody was focusing on me because I looked really unthreatening because I had nothing going on.
That was a similar problem with the cat deck in that it's got harmonized, but what other card draws in white?
You'd want a SRAM, which draws you a card every time you play an equipment. Or, an aura.
Yes.
Yeah, he'd be good in that deck. Mm-hmm. But, anyways, once you got the engine going, once I actually drew into some wizards and also some removal, because boy did I need those board wipes a bit earlier, I was able to start going off, once you get like an Azumi out or whatever, or that 7-mana 5/6 that lets you tap untapped wizards to bounce all of your opponent's vampire tokens back to their hand.
Yeah, that was annoying.
then you're getting somewhere, especially since, all of the cards, all of the creatures that you have are utility creatures.
Yeah.
They all do something.
Yeah.
But the problem is that, I had a wizard that returned another wizard or vampire from my graveyard to the battlefield. But I didn't have any wizards or vampires in the graveyard because I didn't have anything else that I could play except for this 1/1, which nobody could kill because I was not blocking with it, for God's sake. It was keeping me alive.
Right.
So, yeah, it definitely needs some tweaking. I think it can be super strong. Once my engine did get going, and I actually was able to draw cards, play a bunch of wizards, be really annoying about bouncing things, then I just won the game.
What did you think of the commander ability of creating a token copy of the wizard?
Yeah, it was fine. Except for the fact that somebody was playing an enchantment that had all my wizards come into play tap, so I couldn't use them to draw cards or bounce creatures. Oh, yeah. So basically what I had done at the beginning of the game when I had absolutely nothing going on was I sacrificed my command sphere to draw a card. And then I played one of the alternate commanders that allows you to imprint basically on an artifact. Exile the artifact from your hand or your graveyard, and then you can put a cage counter on it, and then this Miracell then has the abilities of everything that has a cage counter on it. So then I basically played her, played another thing, or paid one to create another one, and then immediately sacrificed it to draw a card before stuff happened, and then I was able to bring it back out of the graveyard with that vampire wizard I had that brought stuff out of the graveyard. Yeah. And it let me draw a couple of extra cards.
It's pretty clumsy draw for a blue deck, though.
Yes. Yes, it was. But, like I said, someone had all of our stuff entering tapped, Mr. Vampires.
So, Tams, you also played the Vampires deck. What did you think of it?
Oh, it's pretty sweet. If you are smart and mulligan well and get a decent because you want a fast start with that deck, I think. And if you can
get it.
Yeah. And, well, the thing is, if you have a handful of vampires that you can cast, you're getting an extra vampire every turn. Then you cast your commander, and you attack once, and everything gets a counter. And it can be really brutal. There are some tweaks, I think, that we'll want to make. I think we should go through the removal suite and go through the land.
That seems to be the case with the black decks in the commander series is like you'd think that the black decks would have the best removal, but no, their removal all seems to be kind of weak.
Mm-hmm.
I think just there's a fair amount of board wipes, but there's not as much single target removal as you would probably put in one if you were building it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, single target removal is worse in multiplayer.
Yes.
And we usually play single player.
But the thing is, there's a lot of black creatures that have it attached to a body.
Yeah.
That is true too.
So
Not
a lot
many
of times
that are vampires, though. I mean, for this deck specifically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, all of them have some tweaks.
Yeah.
And we did see the dragon deck played, and it looked vicious.
Yeah,
like
Laura,
it did some crazy stuff.
You were playing the dragon deck the first game, right?
Yes. So, I don't know, the problem is that just all of the spells that you cast, or at least all the ones that I was casting, are really high mana cost.
Mm-hmm.
So and there also wasn't much card draw in that deck either.
Which is a little strange.
That I saw, again.
Fair enough.
So basically, I drew a lot of lands. Unsurprising.
Yeah.
Played some lands. Once I got to like 5 mana, I was able to do something.
Mm-hmm.
No. So at 4 mana, I cast a spell that gave, or an enchantment that gave all my dragons +3/+3, and then I started playing actual dragons.
Right.
But I didn't actually draw more than I think 4 or 5 dragons.
No.
And that was even with me scrying off of the new land that allows you to scry when you play a creature card that matches your commander's type, which all of my dragons are.
Yeah, the Path of Ancestry is pretty great.
Yeah, it's actually quite strong. It's just a nice upside, especially because, with Commander, especially once you've adjusted the lands from what the precons come with, you can probably spare one of the tap lands for any color type of mana. But, yeah, just, again, it felt like if you got off, you would just win. I know that there is some early game in it, like the dragon hatchling or whatever, things that make your dragon spells cheaper, that sort of thing, and of course your commander does that as well. But I just didn't draw them. So I was able to do a ton of damage, but then we of course ran into the eternal problem of Commander, which is 2 of the 3 of us hate multiplayer politics.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I don't like playing multiplayer.
3 of the 3 of us, really. I think I would like to play a multiplayer game with some sort of direction, like you can only attack to your left, or
attack, roll, and play.
Yeah, something like that that eliminates that whole aspect, because that's what I don't like about multiplayer. But we've also played those commander decks in 1v1. Tams, what did you think of them there?
They were fun. The problem that we're going to have is if we decide to go the 1v1 route with them, we're going to need to go through them, because there are some cards in there that become non-bows. Like, you can't really use them because they say, it's going to do this thing to every other opponent except the one you're opposite. And it doesn't trigger or doesn't target properly.
There was something like that in a previous black deck, that when a player is eliminated, you get like an advantage.
Yeah, and you're like, it's called I win.
Yeah.
But we didn't get to play a ton of it, so I'd like to get to play more. But the first games we had was fun. The second wasn't great. I got nothing but tap lands, and even when I mulliganed and mulliganed and mulliganed, I wound up with a handful of tap lands, and I never got I just couldn't get out. So
yeah, the mana bases are
wonky.
Awkward.
Yes, let's go with awkward.
Yeah.
But
so that needs. I think all of them though are really strong bases, which has historically been true of the pre-con decks. So for what it is, it's quite good.
There's usually one that's not as good as the others, and I think this time they just didn't build that one. Seeing how there are only 4 decks here, because these are all fairly reasonable decks, I feel.
I think that they all definitely have their strengths and weaknesses.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, last up is spoilers.
So, we already talked about 2 of the blue cards from the Ixalan spoiler.
Yes, well, I mean, one was a multicolor spell. It looks like the tribes that they're going for are pirates, merfolk, vampires, actually. We've seen vampires so far in black and white, and dinosaurs. which is sweet.
I really, before we get into the spoilers, I just want to talk a little bit about the art. The stuff I've seen so far, I'm loving. I love the dinosaurs. They've gone with a more quote-unquote realistic portrayal of what dinosaurs actually probably should have looked like. So most of them are very feathered. Mm-hmm. And they look amazing.
Least vibrantly colored.
Yeah. They're beautiful.
There are a couple of other creature types that I've seen repeated. Human being one, but there's humans in every set. There's also an orc pirate, which I'm wondering if there are going to be other orcs. Don't know.
Cool.
Does that say vampire or dinosaur avatar? Yes, it does. Okay.
We've also seen the return of vehicles.
Yes. Yeah. I think this is just one of those things that there was no way around.
Well, yeah, if you want pirate ships, which you do.
Now we have a thing in Magic that is vehicles, right?
Yeah.
So it looks to me like vehicles are just sort of going to be evergreen the way equipment are evergreen. Mm-hmm. And where they're useful, they will make one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it also is obviously not something they're just going to shoehorn into every set because there are none in Omega.
Yeah.
So, which I think is fine. If they restrict it to just the planes where it makes sense and they don't go overboard like they did with the introductory splash that they felt the need to make, then cool. Yeah, whatever. We'll see how it goes.
Well, I mean, equipment have settled into their role as just sort of a role player in Magic design, right?
I like the idea of things like
your draft cat has just stolen the hair tie.
What are you doing?
Laura's hair tie is on the table where we record, and he's stealing it because he's very playful today.
I'm sorry, continue.
I like that it feels like things like equipment and vehicles are falling into almost a flavor usage. So, we need to put vehicles in this set because that's integral to the story of what we're trying to tell. So we now have a mechanic that can bring these to us, which is kind of cool.
And honestly, as vehicles were fine in Kaladesh, I guess, because they were the mechanic, but it was weird having them in an India flavored set. In a pirate set, you're going to see at least one ship, and there have been 2 or 3 spoiled, I think. There's a big scary ghost ship, and there's the sleek schooner, and I like the way they look. They've got tribe colors, I guess.
And they also seem strong, but not super strong. But I think they're both only uncommon.
Let's see. There's an uncommon, and there's an uncommon. Yep.
Yeah. So, if that's how they do it as well, just to restrict the power level for limited formats,
that's fine.
Cool.
Works for me.
I wouldn't mind seeing some legendary ghost ship in the in the next set or whatever.
Yeah, that could be cool.
That would be really neat.
But whatever. This just part of the set now.
Yeah.
The focus of the set is, it looks like, going to be tribes and racing for the treasure.
Yeah, so I guess we can talk a bit about some of the mechanics then. So first up, we have a returning mechanic from Khan's block, which is Raid.
Do you know why I love Raid?
Because you like attacking people because you're a red player at heart?
Yes, but it also messes with... It makes you have to think, because, somebody's attacking you. You need to think, okay, this seems like a really bad attack for them. Are they attacking because they have a trick? Are they attacking because they've just made a bad choice, which is great for me? Or are they attacking because they just want to trigger Raid, which is probably not good for me?
Yeah,
it gives that extra layer of thinking.
Am I going to see a Wingmate Rock here?
Yeah.
There were a lot of really good Raid cards in Khan's block. So far, the Raid cards here don't look as strong, and I think that's just fine.
Yeah.
If it's just a utility thing, then that's great.
Well, I think, again, it's kind of in theme, right? Like, you're adventuring, you're going places, you're
going on a raid.
You're trying to beat people to the punch, right?
Yeah. It's kind of cool. So what else do we have?
So, another mechanic... I lost it.
What was it, Rampage? or something like that?
Enrage?
Enrage, that's what it was. So basically, whenever this creature is dealt damage, do X. Draw a card,
So,
put a counter on things.
In this case, Sun-Crowned Hunters are 4 red for a 5/4. Whenever Sun-Crowned Hunters is dealt damage, it deals 3 damage to target opponent. So, I think this is what was being talked about as an allegory for Afflict.
Maybe, but...
When it's dealt damage, it deals 3 to an opponent. But there's also one that when it's dealt damage, draw a card, like you said. Or when it's dealt damage, put a +1 counter on, is it each other dinosaur?
I think it was just each other creature.
So, it's not just one thing. It's another utility mechanic that is just titled the same because of how it's used.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, Raid is when you attack, and Rage is when they're dealt damage.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, a lot of people were really concerned about Afflict. I mean, including me, I was concerned about it, just because we all thought it would make Amonkhet even more aggressive when it was paired with Hour. But that's not at all what happened. The set slowed down a fair amount. Mm-hmm. Just because all
just like you said, Steph, we know.
I mean,
I didn't say anything.
Even though the Afflict cards were all generally quite powerful, they're all playable as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
There just weren't quite that many, and they also didn't necessarily attack well into what everybody else was playing because everybody else is playing nonsense if they're not playing an aggressive deck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Outside of the high rarities, they would get in for an extra 1, 2, or 3 damage, but then probably die.
I mean, unless they're Neheb.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind blocking your Afflict 3 creature and taking 3 if it means it's dead, and I'm not going to have to deal with it anymore.
I mind a great deal when I'm at 3 life.
Sure, but you could say the same about a lot of stuff. I mean, that puts you in burn range,
I don't appreciate being open fired, whatever, to the face.
Yeah,
when I'm at 3, but it happens.
Yep.
You know, so we'll have to see how aggressive the things really do play out. There are a fair number so far of spoiled, like really aggressively costed creatures. Like there's a 1-mana 3/3 in green.
Yep.
I mean, it ramps your opponent, but you may not care about that if it's turn 1 and you're getting a 3/3.
How are we going to feel about that in Commander, I wonder? Like, I think it's playable, but is that just give all your opponents a land and then someone kills it?
Probably. Or it does nothing because it's only a 3/3.
Yeah, that's fair.
And you're starting at 40 life in Commander, so you don't care.
Yeah.
Like, if you had a card that said pay 3 life ramp in Commander, if you're not in green, you'd probably play it.
Yep. You're right.
So, you know, there's also the other new mechanic so far, which is Explore.
Yes. So, as an example, we have Tishana's Wayfinder, 2 and a green for a 2/2.
Beautiful.
Merfolk Scout, she is beautiful. She's
Coloring.
This purple...
Green.
She almost looks like a fairy from, like, Lorwyn fairies. So when she enters the battlefield...
Well, she's a green merfolk.
She's a merfolk scout in green. Weird.
Yeah.
She explores, and that reads, reveal the top card of your library. If that card put that card in your hand if it's a land. Otherwise, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, then put the card back or put it in your graveyard.
So basically this case has 2 cases. It is a 3-mana 2/2 that draws you a card. Mm-hmm. Or it is a 3-mana 3/3 creature that lets you scry 1. Either of those cases are playable.
It's fine with me.
In limited.
The card it draws is always going to be a land, right?
But it means it's not on the top of your deck.
That's true.
Yep.
I don't mind that at all.
Nope.
I think, well, I'm definitely going to play one of these in my draft deck.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
You'd play probably quite a few of them in your draft deck if you had the choice and there weren't any other 3-drops that you were interested in your color. Mm-hmm. Maybe not quite getting there for standard, but I think for limited it'll be good. For sealed it'll be great.
So that's how many mechanics? Explore, Raid,
yeah,
Enrage,
yeah,
and then Tribal-ish so far.
And then, well, there's also flip cards. They have made a return already.
There's at least one.
Yes. So far the one that's been spoiled is the treasure map.
I guess actually no, there has to be a bunch because that's how they print them.
Yeah, because it's awkward for them to print a whole sheet with just the one card on it, and they need to be set up separately.
That's a shame that they can't just do one. There it is. Haha. So Treasure Map is a 2-mana artifact that you pay 1 and tap it to scry 1. Then put a landmark counter on Treasure Map. Then, if there are 3 or more landmark counters on it, remove those counters and transform Treasure Map. Create 3 colorless treasure artifact creature tokens with tap, sack this artifact, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So they're basically gold tokens.
Yeah.
But what it transforms into is Treasure Cove, which is a land that taps for colorless, or tap it and sacrifice a treasure to draw a card.
So it's interesting. It's almost like clue tokens.
And, well, it makes them like clue tokens. Otherwise, they're like gold tokens.
Yeah. But, it does tap for colorless, which is a problem, but it also makes your land a spell, which, as we've especially seen demonstrated in Hour, is great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing about the card, aside from the fact that it's a flip card, though, is that the Treasure Cove side of things has a new border.
Mm.
A new border, and it looks like borderlessness.
Yeah, almost, yeah.
It has the black bottom, where you get all of the curative text.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there is a black border all the way around it.
There's not. If you look at the...
No, I think that... Yeah, no, that's all, I think, from the... Again, it's hard to tell just based on the images, but, I mean, it has to be black border if it's legal and standard, but...
But it doesn't anymore. The Amonkhet invocations don't have black borders.
Yeah, but they had to make a special rule for that. But from this image, it does look like there is black around the card. That is different from the black of the actual...
Except... well, maybe not.
Yeah, so
we'll
we'll
have to see. Yeah.
But the actually, this new frame is what the masterpieces of Ixalan would also look like had they not been scrapped.
Which I mean...
That's too bad. Yeah. I am probably going to be in the minority in the world.
I don't think
but
so.
I absolutely love the look of this. I think it's so flavorful with the little swirly banner, and it looks like old print, like old paper.
I think it looks really cool. I don't think it looks like a Magic card to me. And I don't really care.
Yeah, it looks kind of like a token to me, to be honest.
Yeah.
But the front side does look like a Magic card.
Yeah.
So, but it looks nice. Like, it's legible. It's clean. It certainly looks like, a piece that you would find in an adventure-style board game.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that's what I was going to say. It looks like a card from a different game. Like,
sure.
A treasure hunting board game, like you say.
Yeah.
Rather than a Magic card. But, I mean, whatever, it's fine. It's an artifact that does a weird thing.
Well, I think it's also just because this side of the card is a land card, and land cards always look different from actual Magic cards.
Well, they still have their land border.
Yeah, I mean, they do still share the same aesthetic, but the more popular lands are the ones that look distinctly different. So
I'm wondering if this is a key to other lands we're going to see in the future, because the border is being slowly taken away. Moved back. It's got broader art, I think.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
We will see, but, I mean, it looks nice. I certainly like it more than I like the invocations.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can actually read all the words that are on it.
Yep.
Without squinting.
That's kind of important to me.
So, that's marking another mechanic for the set, is these treasures, because this is not the only card that uses treasure
Oh no, there have been
tokens.
quite a few of them spoiled already, and we haven't even seen the majority of the set yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll be fun in Standard, because there are a lot of artifact synergy cards that are in Kaladesh specifically. Mm-hmm. Mechanized Production, Inspired Statuary to make these tap for mana instead of having to sacrifice them. Mm-hmm. Just fun things like that. There's the Puppeteer that would allow you to drain your opponent when you sacrifice them for mana.
Is it just called Master Mannequin?
Oh yeah,
whatever.
the Mannequin.
Master of Marionettes. Marionette Master.
That's the one.
Yeah.
There's also the enchantment, which Underhanded Designs, which allows you to pay 1 mana to drain your opponent whenever an artifact enters the battlefield, and then you can pay 1 in a black and sacrifice Underhanded Designs to destroy a creature if you have 2 or more artifacts.
You mean that unplayable jank that might just have a place now?
Might just make it. I could see like a sweet black-white type of deck.
I can't wait.
Yeah, so it looks fun. Dinosaurs look super sweet too.
Yes.
Oh yes.
Speaking
Your
of dinosaurs,
favorite mechanic in the entire world is backstep.
So I have my deck that I'm going to build, and it's based on a Chinese card, which I have not yet seen the real name of.
So is this going to be Ass Form 2.0?
Yup. It's going to be Dino Butts.
Dino Butts.
Dino Butts.
Of course, based on Assault Formation.
Yep. So Militant Dinosaur is what the internet has crowned it. 5 green-white for a 4/6 dinosaur. Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. The wall deck is back.
I mean, you do have to get up to 7 mana instead of, 2, which is what Assault Formation was?
Yes.
Which is a huge difference.
So it's going to just have to be
is.
a different format for you.
It's going to be a ramp deck. I'm going to be ramping into this, playing walls along the way.
Which is, I mean, there's already, kind of a jank deck, but recently featured on Channel Fireball, which is green-white ramp into Approach of the Second Sun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, there is a ton of green ramp in the format. So
the problem I see is that ramp and big toughness creatures don't usually go together. I mean, Sylvan Caryatid back in Theros was good for that.
Yeah.
But usually when you're using creatures to ramp, they're 1/1s or 0/2s.
Not now though, because even just in our Amonkhet, you have in
Amonkhet
you have a 1/2, and then in our you have the 2/4s.
Right.
So at 4, so you basically go turn 1 play land, turn 2 play Naga Vitalist, turn 3 play a 2/4 that taps for 2 mana, and then on turn 4 you have 4, 5, 6, 7 mana, and you can play that guy.
Yeah, that seems pretty sweet.
Done. You heard it here
Cool.
first, folks.
Although I am slightly inclined toward black-white vampires as well. Because dinosaurs has never really been my
So what you
tribe.
do is you make 2 decks and you take them both to Sunday Standard and you don't tell them which one you're going to play.
I'd have to sleeve them in the same color sleeves.
It's interesting, though, because this format, from what we've seen so far, also has a ton of life gain. Some of it incidental, some of it not quite so incidental, which interacts well with, say, the horse mythic from our.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying. Plus, there's the green-white cat stuff that's already in Standard.
Oh, so many choices. I don't know what to do.
And it helps that there's not currently a deck.
Yeah. I like that.
A lot of the cards that maybe we're a little ready to say goodbye to are going to be rotating out shortly.
Mm-hmm.
So
all of the Ulamogs and the...
I mean, the problem with that is that it will probably make the Kaladesh archetypes a lot stronger, just because they are so parasitic and they're already super strong.
Oh my god. Is that green thing a dinosaur?
Which green thing? The
thing that enters the battlefield, makes energy for each creature you control, and then you can pay energy to pump it.
Is it a dinosaur? It might be that. It's that or a Hydra, probably. So
Stav
is very quickly going to be doing some research on his new Standard deck.
Yeah.
So he'll be back in a moment. But Tams, what do you think so far, aside from the artwork? What do you feel about the tribal synergies?
I think it's going to be really interesting. I can't wait to play it. Anytime I see vampires, I'm like, hee hee. I do like vampires. I think the cards, some of them are really weird.
Yeah, that's true.
It's going to make set review really interesting because it's very already looking quite different from the last set, which is exciting because change is good.
Oh, I'm very sad.
I'm sorry for you.
Oh well.
So now that his dreams have been dashed.
You were saying?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm super excited. I cannot wait to get more information, that is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
no.
I'm going to be kind of sad to see Hour go.
Yeah.
It's been really a great format. Like, both in draft and in standard.
I've
and
been
also
having
limited.
a blast. Yeah.
It's had
also
a good
sealed, I mean.
Yeah. It's had a good run though too, and by the time we've still got 3 more FNMs, right?
Yes.
And I'm going to probably go to all of them because of the chance to get a fatal push
promo, which is a fatal push.
And by that point, I think I'm going to be satisfied and ready to do something new.
Yeah, but then again, when they have flashback draws, I'll make go.
Oh, absolutely. I will be all over the set.
Yeah, I think this is the set I've enjoyed the most since basically Shadows over Emrakul. Well,
Shadows over Emrakul?
Shadows over Emrakul, basically. No, Shadows over whatever. But I really appreciated the format having so many different ways to play.
Mm-hmm. Me too. That's what I really liked.
I'm hoping that we'll see that going forward into Ixalan, and it looks like maybe because, like you said, there are a lot of aggressively costed creatures, but there are also a lot of huge dinosaurs.
Yeah.
So
we'll have to see how the rest of the spoiler season goes. So, next up, I mean, we don't have too much time left, so we're just going to chat quickly about what we've been doing.
What have we been doing?
I went to F&M, and I drafted the world's most disgusting deck.
Nice.
Let me just pull up a picture here. So basically what happened is I went pack one, pick one, the Scorpion God.
Oh.
And said, well, I mean, A, you obviously first pick that every time. But B, let me just see if I can draft blue-black. So I was sitting next to...
the Scorpion God or the Scarab God?
Scarab God.
Ah.
I always mess them up. Yes, the Scarab God. So the blue-black one that allows you to scry when you have zombies and drains and zombies out of the graveyards and stuff like that. So the 2 people to my right were also in blue, but we were all doing very different things. So basically my plan was stall. So I had a couple of Cunning Survivors, I had a Tog Crop Skirmisher, Walls, Scorpions for Death Touch, just, random things. I also had a Champion of Wits, which is a great card in any blue deck, but the fact that it allows me to pitch creatures to my graveyard to fuel my Scarab God is just even better. I had not too many actual creatures. I had maybe 13 or something like that, but just a couple of random ones. The real horror was going on in my spells. So these are my spells. Unsummon, Unquenchable Thirst, Essence Scatter, Splendid Agony, Unburden, Hieroglyphic Illumination, 2 of the Torment of Scarabs, which is the 4-mana enchantment, and 2 Torment of Venoms, which is the 4-mana instant, but 3 counters. So basically what I did was I went turn 2, play a creature that stalls the game.
Sure.
Turn 3, hopefully play a creature that stalls the game. Turn 4, curse you. I almost always had a curse on turn 2, or on turn 4, because I had a Champion of Wits, a Hieroglyphic Illumination, several Cyclers, and I had 2 of them. And then turn 5, maybe Torment of Venom you, maybe play my God, maybe Unburden you, so that you have to start sacking creatures. I did that once to somebody. It was really, really mean. I several times got both of my curses on the person at once.
Oh.
So they then had to sacrifice 2 creatures, or discard 2 cards, or take 6 life. So
how did you do?
I ended up going 3-1.
Okay.
I lost in the finals to another blue... Well, he was playing Grixis, because he always plays Grixis. It's actually the same guy I went 3-1 to last week. So yeah, lost in the finals. My other games, as long as I actually drew things to play in the early game, weren't even that close. I rarely needed the Scorpion God to win. Usually, I just hit them in the face with, like, Cunning Survivors, because I was discarding and cycling a lot of cards as well. Like Champion of Wits.
Yep.
If you embalm it, that's +4/+4, or +4/+0 to your Cunning Survivors, and things like that. So the deck was super sweet. It was exactly what I wanted to be doing. And I may have made some people cry, but I enjoyed it. because I am a dirty blue player.
Yes, you are. Speaking of discarding, I just wanted to mention that, are we going to talk about League?
Briefly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, you guys did not go to F&M.
we did not. We were going to, but then we ended up not being able to.
Go see an apartment.
So, yeah. Next up, I think, unless you guys did something over the weekend.
Nope.
Was
just played
League
Commander.
on Tuesday. Oh, yeah, we did play League on Commander on Monday.
Yeah.
We did play Commander on Monday.
But we already talked about that.
We did, so League is next.
So speaking of making people discard, an opponent made me discard a card, and I discarded Dream Stealer, and he was sad.
Oh, is that the one that makes you discard a card equal to its power when it deals combat damage to you, and also has menace,
Yes.
and also eternalizes as a 4/4?
Yes.
I would be sad as well.
So I didn't actually get to cast it because he then exiled it with his rat, but
It was sweet.
It was worth the look on his face when I discarded it.
Fair.
So we were all there yesterday for League. I only got 2 games in because we had to go and see Wonder Woman. Yes,
I went
and saw Wonder Woman instead of finishing my League game.
We needed a mental health evening. We've had so much stress with apartment hunting that we just needed a break. So, yeah.
So I, as of start of League on Tuesday, was still in first place.
Sick brags, man.
Yeah. I lost a game to the guy in 3rd, and then won against the guy in 8th, but in 2 real close games, and it was a lot of fun.
Nice.
And that's all I really have to say. I did tweak the deck down to 2 colors. I took out the green splash.
Probably correct.
Probably correct, especially because I got to add both the black-white zombies to the deck now, so it looks just stronger overall. I am running 19 creatures and 7 pieces of removal, 3 of which are lands, so...
Yeah. You know.
Yeah.
It's alright. I mean, once you get to like weeks 5 and 6, where you place in the top 8 really only matters for seeding.
Yeah.
So I also only played 2 games. I did not have the best of nights, but I had fun night. I'm also still in the top 8 as of this week. We'll see what happens next week. I played my first round against Judge John. And we had at least I had a really fun time. I'm sure he did since he ended up winning in 3. But up to this point, John's had a lot of problems against my deck. But I don't necessarily think it's my deck so much as his deck decides when he sits down across from me to, you know what, I don't think you need stuff. Or my deck says, hey, I've got some answers for you. So it's just been very bad luck for him. So we sat down and he won 1, I won 1, and then the last game, which was awesome, and it went a little something like play a creature. -1 counters on your creatures? Okay, fine. So I get rid of my creature. He plays a creature. I'm like, exile your creature? He's like, sure. And this went on back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. We'd get a little traction, get a creature down, smash some face. We both wound up down around 4 or 5, and then it was top deck. And
I was there for that. I saw you top decking, and you both had like half your libraries in your graveyard.
Yeah, it was so fun.
And nothing on the battlefield.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I can see how this game went.
Yeah, it was super, super fun. And he top decked better. So he eventually won, which was fine. And then I played my second round against another guy who we were 1-1 up to this point. He won 1 round against me. I won 1 round against him. And he's super fun to play against. And my deck was like, nope, don't think so. First game, he crushed me. His deck was very much hitting everything on curve. And the second game was miserable, but it's still fun because he's such a nice guy. Yeah. So even when it's miserable, it's still fun. So I mulliganed to 5 because first 7 was no land, then no land, and I'm not keeping either of those. My 5 was 2 swamps and a forest. So I'm like, sweet, 3 land. And then the zombie, the 3/3 for 3 that can't block unless you have another zombie.
Bone something Marauder.
Yep. And then the 1-drop green shed weakness.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay, this seems pretty good. I've got an aggressive creature, which is what I want to do. I will probably draw one of my 3 spiders. So this is good. All right, if I'm going to have to mulligan to 5, this is the way I do it. And then I look and I'm like, okay, bottom that because I don't need a 5-drop right now. And I'm like, okay. So then my deck went a little... Oh, no, I bottomed the land. That's what it was because I had 3 land and I really wanted another creature. So then my thing went a little something like... play out my creatures, drop my creature, start attacking in. He gets a bunch of creatures down, starts attacking me, and I'm like, land, 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 land. And I can't block anything because I have no other zombie. So then he's like, creature, 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 creature. I'm like, yeah. And then I'm like, land. Oh, well. So it was sad, but whatever. I had a really fun time. And then we went and saw Wonder Woman, and I was super happy, so...
As an aside, against that deck, Splendid Agony is very good because when you say creature, creature, what it really is 1 toughness creature, 1 toughness creature.
Yeah.
And then Splendid Agony got to take out both of them in my game against them, and I was happy.
And for me, Splendid Agony, having people put multiple creatures down anyway, for me is fantastic because if I get more than 1 spider out and then I can Splendid Agony 2 creatures...
Yeah.
Then I'm getting trigger, which is amazing. So, it's fine.
So I did not have a movie to run off to, so I stayed and got my 4 rounds and also my trades in for the week.
Nice.
Because we are on the 3rd grouping of weeks for trades, so weeks 5 and 6. But not many people stick around to trade on the last week because finals are coming up shortly. People are pretty much done. A lot of people don't even bother to buy a pack because they're happy with how their deck is. So
I am going to buy a pack. I really need.
Oh yeah, I do too. But it just if you can get your trades in for weeks 5 and 6 on week 5, it's usually a bit easier for you.
Yeah.
And my deck was not super cooperating. I mean, I ended up going 3-1, but I had to mulligan to at least 6 in the majority of my games because I didn't have enough lands. The nice thing is that my deck has so much card draw that it mulligans actually pretty well. And I have so many 2-drops that as long as I draw a hand that has at least 2 lands, hopefully 1 of each color, and a 2-drop, I will keep that and I'll usually draw into stuff. Because my deck mulligans well, but it also has a really low curve, which is weird because it's a ramp deck, but the reason that I'm ramping is to draw cards off of recurring abilities and also to play embalm creatures or internalize creatures. So I actually don't have anything in my deck that costs more than 6. And I only have 2 creatures that cost more than 4. So it just means that, my deck tends to mulligan pretty well. I can keep a pretty land-heavy hand because I have so many cycling lands. And also I like hitting all my land drops. And also I have Champion of Wits. Now I have 2 Champion of Wits that let me discard cards. So, I am still loving my deck. I probably should still be in black-green, but I do not care because I'm happy with how things are going and I don't want to change it.
Wow. That's all that really matters in this sort of league setup is you play for fun.
Like, you have to put together a deck that you'll be happy playing for at least 7 weeks plus an opening tournament.
Yeah.
So if you can't do that, then you're just not going to have as much fun during the league. So.
Yep.
So the last thing to talk about then, just before we go, there's an article written on Channel Fireball by I think Brian Braunduin, who's a professional Magic player, and it was just about the language that's used when interacting with others in the gaming community, but specifically in the Magic community, and maybe which phrases should not be acceptable, I guess. So, a lot of people were agreeing with him, including the 3 of us. And to be honest, I think basically anyone whose maturity level is that of anything above a 15-year-old. He's talking a lot about things that I experienced when I was a young gamer, specifically in like Counter-Strike and that sort of community. So, I certainly appreciated his points. And if that's something that interests you, I would suggest checking it out.
Yeah, this is something that affects gamer communities, like, across the board. It's just a language thing. And when we first started playing at the shop, I had to talk to the shop owner about, I guess not when we first came, but at a point when the shop got more business, there was a certain element that was used to online gaming or casual talk, and there are just certain phrases and words that aren't appropriate in a shop setting or in any public forum, really.
Yeah, I mean, A, it's a public forum. B, Magic is designed to be a game for all ages.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I play WoW religiously, and you see that a lot if you're doing anything group-oriented that isn't your friends a lot of the time, especially PvP-based gaming. You see a lot of this kind of phrasing being thrown out, words for "I'm going to crush your face" or "we just got stomped." They use phrases that can be very triggering for some people and can feel very aggressive and upsetting.
Or just not kosher.
Yeah.
Not polite.
Yeah. So it's, WoW deals with it you can report them and you can block them, which is nice. Mm-hmm. But if you're in a game shop, that's not something you can really...
Yes.
Well, you can talk to the store owner.
Sure, but you can't really,
doing.
Yeah.
Yes, our store owner does have a language policy.
Yes,
because
fantastic.
We frequently have younger children who are playing with us.
And he enforces it.
Yes.
And not in an aggressive manner either.
No, just in a...
He's just good with people, so that helps.
Yeah.
But also just, I heard a word, we don't use that word in the store, we have a language policy. That's it. Everybody gets the same warning. It happens if anybody says it.
Yeah.
I've seen it become an issue a couple of times, and he's done personal talkings to a few people, and those people, for the most part, have just tightened up their language, and now it's a happy place for everyone to play.
Yeah,
and
so
I really appreciate that.
I think you start to run into problems when the shop owner is less inclined to be, to stand up to certain policies or uses that type of language themselves or doesn't see what's so serious about it.
And in an online context, that can be the forum moderators, etc.
Or the Magic online chat window, because WoW or Miko Super does not enforce any particular chat policy, so people are free to be as hostile as they like online. I mean, technically they have an abuse policy, but it doesn't super happen.
Well, I have had positive interactions with the online moderators in the past about these issues. So,
but again, you have to know that you can go to them and use it,
and they're not super forward about those tools being available.
Yeah, that's true. Then we had to search long and hard to figure out how to deal with certain things. So,
yeah, well, this has been an issue for gaming communities
since the internet was invented, and probably before then. But with the internet, especially with a lot of people growing up playing games and having the anonymity of the internet, and also, being socialized to use these type of terms just online, and then having to remember that, no, you can't actually say those things in public and continue to be treated like, a respectful, polite human being. You will then be treated as somebody who says these type of things.
Yeah.
It can be tough, especially if nobody's willing to just sit down and say, hey, these are the words that we can't use in this store. And if you don't like them, you may take your business elsewhere. But if you're willing to work with our language policy, that's great.
Something good to talk about.
Yeah. I guess that's basically it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we all agree on this.
Yeah, so it's not much of a, but it's good to put it out there because it's something I don't know that everyone thinks about, especially if it's something that doesn't bother you, but know that there are other people that it really does.
Yeah.
So
that will be it for this week, I think.
So thanks for joining us here on the Knowledge Pool for episode 26, because it's been episode 26. We've had a lot of fun discussing the Ixalan /Command-Salon stuff.
And we look forward to talking about more next week.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye.